Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. I'm just going to let people get into the Zoom room here. Thank you so much for being with us on your Friday afternoon or morning from wherever you are. And maybe while people are getting into the Zoom room, we can just do some quick introductions. Ladybird, are you okay to speak a little bit about yourself, and then we can ask Radhule to speak a little bit about herself?
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today on Friday. Many of you are probably familiar with me. I'm one of the Mettle Health clinicians, so I participate in the webinars and I'm available for private sessions and teaching, and have a love and practice of meditation myself, and I'm thrilled to be sharing this hour with Radhule, who has quite a background and experience in this world and has a lot to share with us. So I'm grateful to hand it over to her. I don't really have a lot more to say about myself. But Radhule, if you want to introduce yourself and
Yeah. I'm Radhule Weininger. I'm a psychologist in Santa Barbara and meditation teacher. Actually, I was a medical doctor in Germany before I came to the States 37 years ago. And I also have a very great passion for meditation, which actually I started in 1981 in a monastery in Sri Lanka. And bringing mindfulness together with Western needs, Western suffering, our predicaments of our human condition here in our world has been my passion.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you both. Ladybird, if you want to go to the next slide, I can do a little logistical check-in. So what we usually do in these is kind of go through some slides and then go to questions. But I think this time around, Ladybird, you're going to be doing a little bit more interview style of Radhule. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's going to be a little more of us talking to each other. Great. And then I'll move through the slides for sure.
Wonderful. Just wanted to call that out and just let people know that while usually we kind of wait till the end for questions, if something comes up while they're going through their discussion, please feel free to put it into the Q&A or into the chat, and we can absolutely address it as it comes up. That works super well as for us too. And the other thing we wanted to say was, if you want to share where you are in either a meditation experience or a mindfulness experience into the chat, we'd love to hear about it. If you're someone who's had a practice for a really long time, if you're someone who's just starting, if you're someone who's just interested, please let us know. We'd love to learn a little bit about you and why this webinar sounded interesting to you. Ladybird, if you want to go back to that last one, I'll do the logistical part of it. So then if and when you have a question, you can raise your hand and we will unmute you and you can speak with Radhule and Ladybird. And if you prefer not to do that, you can just type it into the Q&A section and I will read it aloud for you. So again, you can raise your hand, we'll unmute you, or you can type it into the Q&A and I'll ask it myself. And again, if you just find yourself really resonating with something that's being said throughout the discussion, please feel free to also pop it into the chat or into the Q&A and we can add it to the discussion. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So thanks everyone again for coming. And I am gonna be more of a moderator, sort of interviewer for Radhule. And something that we spoke about in preparing for this conversation was just, the difference between meditation practices that you develop over time and incorporate into your life versus a lot of times people come to practices because they're in distress or in stress, and there are a lot of different models and methods out there, and we come at it from a different place of wanting to change something, to alleviate something, versus this is just a part of our way of relating into the world. And so Radhule, at some point through our conversation, I hope that you can address those differences, when you practice meditation for many, many years versus when you first come into it, And
Right.
when you come into it because of distress, either illness or somebody else's illness, how that can also look different versus somebody who starts meditating, at a very young age, just because this is a part of being in the world.
Mm.
So there are many different ways we can talk about this, but if you would be so kind as to, again, you've said a little bit about your background, but really what has kept you in this practice? What does this practice mean to you? And
Right.
what you're hoping to be able to bring to the listeners today, what you would like them to hear from you, if nothing else, like maybe, that's important to you.
Well, maybe I can just start with my own story, if that's okay.
Please.
Um, I actually started to meditate in 1981. I was pretty young. I think it was 22 or so. But I had been very ill. I had two huge car accidents and a stomach ulcer. I was a German medical student. Then I had a lot of pain with my family, but also physical ailments and these two car accidents that landed me for over 2 months in the hospital. And then I tried to push through and get back into medical school, and I got a big stomach ulcer. And at that point, I took a half year off from university to kind of heal. And then with a friend who inspired me to do so, and that was very unusual then for Germany, where I came from. I went to Sri Lanka, and somehow I had not that I knew anything about Buddhism. I really didn't. I hadn't really read about it, and I'm not from California, so it wasn't really part of our culture, culturally known then. I just was attracted to the peace in these temples. And I met this wonderful old monk who kind of guided me to my first meditation retreat. And I remember sitting there with my mind being just really fried and unhappy. And I was still suffering from the after effects of these two major car accidents. And but as I was sitting, even though it was hard on my body then, I started to feel a little bit of a sense of ease and of my crazy mind calming down, my rumination, my worrying, my fretting, my maybe self doubt and pain. And so that became just even though it was not easy to sit there and look at myself, I just had this deep feeling I had to. It's like I had tried everything on the outside to make myself feel better, meds um, and maybe going on vacations and this and that. Yoga, I tried, but it just hadn't really made a difference. So I realized I had to kind of look inside and be with, look at what was there. The fear and the doubt and the self-doubt and maybe self-loathing that was there. And what was really relieving for me is to learn that I can look at this. There's a methodology. I can notice that maybe my anxiety is arising and passing again. One of the truths in Buddhist meditation is that everything is change. Everything arises and passes away. And that was a real relief for me, that this is all a process. It's not that I'm a sick person, I'm an angry person, I'm a forever depressed person, that these are all phenomena that I can watch and that I can see passing through. And that was really, really helpful for me. And then after some practice, as things calmed down, I realized that at the bottom of my confusion was a sense of peace. and relief. And that was just so wonderful because I didn't know that existed. You know, I thought the bottom line was confusion and pain. And so to realize that the bottom line is actually peace, if you go underneath the pain, was an immense discovery for me. And then I came back, you know, I went back to university, finished medical school, which is a lot of work. And I'm not a natural scientist, so it was super hard. And my practice helped me to finish my tasks. And then I actually went to America and became really interested in psychology. You know, I went into therapy myself to discover myself. And then I realized both together is really useful. You know, understanding the content of, let's say, my family problems or my problems with the world, but also be with the process. Notice that I could find some ease and equanimity and some, you might say, mindful witness to realize what was happening. So, especially through getting to know Jack Kornfield, who has been my mentor now for over 20 years, I realized that we can bring East and West together. You know, we can make this practice secular but sacred, I might say. And that it can be useful for people. I started a group in a cancer center. I worked quite a bit with people in the end of life, and that you know, sometimes we can't be cured, but we can't be healed. You know, that's a very important concept. Or maybe our body can't be fully restored, but there can be an inner sense of freedom and open-heartedness that we can find. And so I think that is what's really important in this practice. And there are many other benefits, like health benefits, you know, from blood pressure to anxiety to depression to, I don't know, PSA rates, that we know of these days. But for me, it was a longing for peace, you know, to find a sense of freedom and then to bring that back into the world. Because now I work as a psychologist for so long. If I have that sense of ease and peace and ease with the process inside of me, then I can be present with suffering without getting overwhelmed. Maybe that's what I like to say to caretakers here and people who are in service of others. You know, if we have one foot in that which is free, then we can be wholeheartedly with what is so painful and difficult. And you know, the human condition is super difficult. You know, it's really, whether it's a personal illness or whether it's the world, you know, it's difficult however we slice it. What was one important discovery for me was to know, as we learn in mindfulness practice often, that awareness can be seen as moment by moment, non-judgmental attention, you know, and the non-judgmental is really important.
We're gonna actually, I'm gonna grab you for a second, because you are saying so many incredible pieces. And I want to just slow down because you're offering so much that I want to give people a chance to hear what you're saying. It's beautiful. No, it's really beautiful. And I think just to go back a moment to, like, you know, who is this for? This is for everyone, right? I mean, like what you're saying, like that capacity to experience freedom in your lifetime, in your body, in your experience in the world. And I think for some, there's a sense, well, I'm not religious, or I'm not spiritual, or I'm too busy, I don't know how to. That's not for me. I like to be doing things, and that this doesn't preclude doing things. Mindfulness isn't about hiding away and escaping. It actually, like you were saying, allowed you to show up for a lot of difficulty that you were experiencing in your life. And so to really look at this, not so much as a way of like a practice that is separate from living, that it actually enables you to live your life very fully and show up for things that are actually hard. And you said something that I think is really, to me, the seed of what the practice means to me is you go underneath the discomfort, you go underneath the sorrow and the pain and the fear and the agitation. You don't erase it, you don't diminish it, you don't discount it, but you go to the deeper place so that you can actually inhabit it from a fullness versus a place of lack, right? And a lot of times what happens when we're depleted or we're overwhelmed and we're scared, we go towards this thing that is troublesome to us with such a place of lack that it's like hacking away at ice. It doesn't actually, it's just melting around you. It's not really solving the problem. So thinking about meditation and mindfulness as a way to inhabit your life is really different than escaping it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And, I think there I would say that mindfulness can be this moment by moment presence, or awareness can be this moment by moment presence. And as you said now yourself, it is also awareness can be a place we can dip into. That's always there underneath or within and around, and that is always very close by, that we just have to discover that it's there.
Yeah.
And then we can live our lives from this place.
Yeah. So is a quieting the mind, is that to you? I'm curious what you feel or hear when you hear that. I mean, I know some people are like, oh, it's impossible, my mind does not get quiet. And what is your way of describing quieting the mind to get to these other places that you're speaking of?
Well, it's quieting the mind carefully, gently, noticing our thoughts, our feelings. But it's also realizing the stillness, the peace that's already there. And maybe we don't have to totally quiet the mind for that. Like we don't have to be completely without thoughts to feel that. We can feel that presence of awareness, and then thoughts become like little fish swimming in the ocean, or they can become like rays of light passing through, but they lose their grab. They lose their painfulness and their great suffering.
That's lovely. So quieting the mind is not silence. It's that softening of the grasping. And I picture the fish. It's beautiful. I can see that, like, things moving through. It's not that you're grabbing onto them or getting stuck in them.
Well, Jack Cornfield had a wonderful quote. It said, if you have a spoonful of salt, something that's quite salty, and you put it into a glass of water, it becomes very salty. But if you put a spoonful of salt into a mountain lake, it's not salty at all. So part it's the quieting the mind, and part is making the spaciousness bigger. Does it make sense?
It totally makes sense. No, I mean, yeah, I think for me, similar to you, I started meditating, not in the 80s. I was in the 80s, it was the 90s, but I was a teenager. And now I'm in my 50s. And I I feel like what I have learned through the years of practice is my life certainly hasn't gotten easier. I wouldn't say that by any means, but I feel like there's more space. There's more space for me to experience what is challenging and to actually get some clarity. And I sometimes think about, I haven't studied a lot with Deborah Eden Toll, but she wrote a really lovely book called Relational Mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciated that because it's that notion of not that mindfulness and awareness practices aren't about separating yourself from the world, but they are actually ways to allow you to respond. And so my responses to situations have evolved differently based on my mindfulness. And it doesn't make them easier necessarily, but there's a clarity that is different, as opposed to feeling overwhelmed and muddled, and then I'm just reaching out and doing whatever is the lowest hanging fruit, right? That spaciousness.
And I think that spaciousness is especially important if one is very ill or in the end of life, because who said that, Rumi or somebody, the veil gets thinner. Not always, but especially if people had a little taste of peace before in their lives. So that's why I feel it's preparing me for getting older and older and dying, and that we can be with what is hard with a lot less fear. And then spaciousness, actually, I noticed that quite a bit sitting with people in the end of life, then comes towards you a bit.
Yeah, it's beautiful coming towards you, allowing the world. There's something that I've said to people. One of my teachers talked about this practice of walking into the forest. And when you walk into the forest, to allow the forest to receive you. We're so self-focused. It's always about what I'm getting, what I'm perceiving, how I'm feeling, what I should be doing, without recognizing that the world is also responding to you. And from the caregiver perspective, to allow the person you're caring for to recognize that they are receiving you. You are also a presence in the space. So making that spaciousness allows it to not feel constricting or claustrophobic. It means that, we all have a place of belonging in the world, right? That it goes to a bigger place where mindfulness for me really allows me to be a part of the world again, not just with the small places that are difficult, but like, oh, I belong in this world. And what does that mean to belong? And how do I inhabit this space? Awareness.
And I think what comes then naturally is a sense of open-heartedness. When we are in this more spacious place, it's easier to love or to forgive or to not be so resentful. And it comes then naturally. We don't have to force it, or it's just kind of with, if the spoonful of salt is in the mountain lake, then something else is bigger than our frustration.
Yeah. Is there something that you've experienced in teaching, Radhule, that you've come across with your students in terms of that moment where it's integrated, or the moment where they realize, oh, I'm able to do this? And like, can you speak to that place? I know people struggle sometimes finding that relationship with practice.
Actually, right now we are doing for the second time a 2-year facilitator training for people who want to work in retirement homes or in hospice or in schools or with people in recovery. So I have this weekly groups with my people who become facilitators, which is really, really a lovely thing. And so every week we discuss what's coming up for people. And yes, there is this slow deepening, like me in Sri Lanka. At first I went there just because I was in so much pain. I didn't know where to go, like basically out of a bit of desperation. And the Buddha said in his first noble truth that when we realize our suffering, then that opens the door to awareness. If we actually look into our face. So I think what I see in my group of fledgling facilitators is that there is this slow deepening from being able to sit themselves with themselves and not just be tortured by sitting still, but actually starting to enjoy it, feeling, and we are having every morning at 7:30 to 8, 25 minutes. It's free for everybody, a little meditation group. And many people come every weekday morning, they are there Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 8. And people start to crave it. And I could see one day we had a technical problem and we couldn't do it. People were, where's our group? How can I do my day? Because I need my 25 minutes of meditation. And so slowly it's like going to the gym, we get habituated. What is hard at first becomes easy. And then we even have a longing. It's almost like a sense of homesickness. And then there is kind of slowly we become more gentle and tender towards ourselves. Somebody said meditation is the art of making friends with ourselves. Some of the hardest things in life are our grudges towards ourselves. And so I think meditation helps with that. And when we can be friends with ourselves, then we can broaden that out to the people we work with, to our loved ones, to our neighbors, to our pets, to our world. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
You did, and so much more. I'm curious what's coming up for people. I mean, yeah, it absolutely makes sense, and it. I also experienced that longing for the practice, and it's interesting. I hadn't thought of it so much as making friends with myself, but that makes sense. And I had sort of seen it as a friend to myself, which is another little bit of a remove, which is also kind of fascinating that I took it like a little bit away from myself. So that is something to also consider. But I always thought of it as like how you pet, a cat or a dog, this tending to something, and really, that half an hour is like this nurturing, this nourishment and feeding, versus sort of a task. It doesn't feel like a task. It feels like a kindness.
Yeah.
Can I ask a very logistical question of the two of you while you're talking about this? For people who don't already have a practice, like, how do you find that they kind of move through it? Is it like a minute here, 5 minutes here, maybe they forget for a couple of days and then come back? Like, what is the standard starting of this process? And maybe there isn't one, but I'm just curious for myself, because I'm someone who doesn't have a practice, but it really intrigues me. And when I do kind of dip my toe in, I find that it's super, super helpful. And Radhule, I totally hear you on the, like, you start to want it like exercise, because I've experienced exactly what you're talking about with exercise, but haven't ever been able to get there with mindfulness. So I'm just wondering if you have, both of you, if you have just kind of thoughts on like what it is to start out and like being kind to yourself if you're not quote unquote good at it.
Well, I do have some thoughts. I know nowadays very, very brief practices are becoming kind of fashionable. For me, it always took a little while for my mind to settle. I feel like I did never really get there with just a 5-minute practice, but it might work for some people. So if you go to the Spirit Walk website or the Inside LA website or our website, which is mindfulheartprograms.org, at least our website, we offer everything for free. And I think some of our things are linked to Mettle Health. So you could just go, we do every day offer 2 meditations, sometimes 3 meditations. Sundays is only 1. So I think it helps to sit with a group and to it's easier, you know, and to have a guided meditation.
Yeah. And that community piece of it is
Yeah.
interesting too, because I've never tried that, just doing it solo versus being in a group, either, you know, over Zoom or physically.
So I think our website is on your website, but otherwise, please put it there, mindfulheartprograms.org, especially the morning sessions. And we have every night at 7 a session. They're really popular. You know, it's quick, easy, free. You don't have to commit. You don't have to sign up. You just come when you want and you go when you want, you know. And and it just seemed what I see in my morning group. And you know, there are many people who always come, and then some that sometimes come or sometimes go. People become so appreciative of each other. You know, it's like, hi, good morning. Okay, now we are ready for the day. And it's easier to, no, it's the other one. It's mindfulheartprograms.org.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, and programs with an S, mindfulheartprograms.org. We are nonprofit. And so I think that definitely helps. Many people work with apps like Headspace or Sam Harris's Waking Up, and they do work for some people. Some people like more, oh yeah, they're actually real people who are meditating with me. So I think try out for yourself. But if you try one of those apps and they don't work for you, don't give up, because I think as much as apps are helpful, they are also a little problematic, because a lot of people think I tried it and it didn't work too quickly. So it's actually good to sit with a teacher, with a group. And like Monday nights at 7, we always have a meditation, but there's also instruction and question and answers. And I'm sure up in in your neck of the woods, there is Spirit Walk and all these great resources. And so, yeah, I think that works. And maybe reading a little bit works too. I personally love the book Wise Heart by Jack Kornfield, or by Pema Children, How to Meditate. Ladybird, do you have any books you want to put in there?
I don't know if a book has ever helped me with my meditation.
Okay,
No, but it's a good question, because I think, like you're saying, there's so many different right now in the world, because we're so global.
Yeah.
In some ways there's too many options, but then there's the beauty of having many, many options. Whereas in the past, you just had a teacher who lived in your neighborhood, and that happened to be the pathway that you learned because that's what was available. And so it's a really different moment in time. And I appreciate your commenting about the community. I mean, you know, Sangha is it's a real energetic force. Like, you're not doing this alone. There is a way that you're living in the world with other people. And I think that part of it is helpful, and it can kind of help you get through the parts that don't make sense or don't feel comfortable, or that, like, what am I doing? I don't want to be wasting my time. You're connecting to somebody else, and you're connecting to community, and that is part of the seed that got me through, at least. And then for, yeah, most of the time I'm practicing on my own, but it's because I know that I am practicing in a world where other people are practicing. And so it becomes a language of belonging again. You know, we're not in isolation. And there is a way that, Radhule, you made that comment about, you know, meditation brings you into that place of being friends with yourself. And when you're friends with yourself, you can be friends with the world. And so part of being kind and introducing that is to be back into community. So taking the fact that you don't know how to do something and being curious to learn, and check out some different modalities, and go to the Sangha that your friends go to. Even if you don't agree with the teacher, just kind of check it out. There isn't a, a gun at somebody's head that says like, you have to do it this way. But to have some curiosity and let your friends, I know like I had a friend once who really wanted to try to meditate, and she made a commitment to herself to do it. And she told a group of us, she said, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. Please support me in this. And so we supported her. We met every day with her, or we reminded her to meet. Like there was a way that you're helping each other be accountable for this thing that you're exploring with curiosity, right? With some joy, not with like a punishment or that you have to somehow master it. And then, yeah, the timing, I think it's a really good question, because like you said, there's this new sort of, everybody wants to just meditate for 5 minutes, but I was given that information as a starting place. Like if you are really feeling so far away from this practice, then just start with 5 minutes. And so you have an out, and then you can actually accomplish that pretty easily and be like, whoa, I did it for 5 minutes. Maybe I can practice for 6. And you can then keep, like you would do with running, the same thing you do with running. You don't start running 12 miles, you start running 3 miles. And then you add another mile, and you add another mile. It's the same thing with meditation. And then you keep adding it based on your accomplishment, not based on like a pressure cooker, your strength.
Yeah. Thank you both. I appreciate that. I also wanted to just read off one of the notes that was put in the chat while you guys were speaking. Sarah said, for those of us with a history of trauma, it is so important to be able to enter the space between a trigger and a response. And mindfulness is very helpful in being able to do this.
That's very true. And I think often dukkha or suffering has been translated as reactivity. Yes, if we break our leg, that is that's very hurtful, and it's one part of suffering. But when we think we are the most clumsy person who did that, or we blame ourselves or somebody else, that reactivity creates a lot more suffering. I developed something, and I've described it in both of my books, which is Hard Work, The Path of Self-Compassion, and Hard Medicine, How to Stop Painful Patterns and Find Peace and Freedom. The mindful pause, feel your frustration, and then for a moment, make a choice to pause. Feel your body. Exhale to relax. Feel the breath going through your heart. Extend compassion to yourself. And then come back to breath flowing through. And when ready, re-engage with life. And that little practice, or I think in my first book, I have all kinds of mindful heart practices for being sad or angry or afraid or ashamed or reluctant or whatever, creates that little space. And I know many teachers have different rituals for doing that. But we can always, let's say we are in a meeting and we get really triggered and aggravated. We can always take 5 minutes out and go to the restroom or the kitchen, or walk up and down the hallway and just do that little practice and check in and feel what hurts us, extend compassion for ourselves, connect to breath, and then go back in and when we are ready, and things will go better afterwards. So I really like that question. That's very true.
It's really beautiful. I'm looking at the time and I realize we only have 10 minutes. Radhule, would you be willing to guide that? I felt guided just there.
I did too. I was going to say the same thing.
Could we do another one? Would you mind sharing another short practice with us if there isn't a question that's out there waiting to be responded to? Sonia, is there anything?
No, I think we're good. I would love that too. And I felt exactly the same way, Ladybird. I was doing it with you and feeling
Yeah.
myself calming, and it
Yes.
was like,
So Radley, whenever you feel
Yeah,
ready.
I wanted just to say my little pauses practices, I think are on my website and also on the Shambhala publications website. They're recorded. And so you can get them there in audio form. Yeah. Okay. Let yourself settle into the sensations in your body. Notice the touch between your body and the chair, the ground. And feel your whole body all at once. Just the felt sense, the physical sensation of whatever is there. Comfort, discomfort, neutral. Sense your body deeply. And for a moment, feel your heart's intention, your longing for yourself. Maybe you're longing for peace of heart or peace of mind. You're yearning for a sense of belonging. You're yearning for a sense of home. Whatever it is for you, feel that inner longing. Then again, feel this whole felt sense of your body. Every inch, every pixel. Your whole body filled with awareness. Notice breath arising with the in-breath and falling with the out-breath. In-breath and out-breath in this cycle. You might even feel your breath moving all by itself automatically, like a wave coming up to shore and receding back into the big sea. Like a wave coming up to shore and receding back into the big sea. And just feel your breath from the inside out. Letting go of thinking, worrying mind, and just be breath. Breath breathing you. And as if there is a vast warm ocean of awareness all around you, within you, around you. Limitless, boundless, like this vast mountain lake, with breath arising and dissolving like waves in this lake. Feel that spaciousness within, around, no inside, no outside. Like this clear mountain lake, quiet, knowing, open-hearted. Just notice phenomena passing through. Thoughts might pass through like waves of light or like fish swimming through, appearing and leaving without trace. And again, feel this vast mountain lake. And feelings like a breeze or gust of wind coming into being and dissolving again. Always here. Feeling that relaxation and open-heartedness. And again, feel your seat, your body, now from this vaster perspective. And be back here now.
Thank you. That was lovely.
Yeah.
And I think
Is that difficult, no?
well, I think what's a beautiful reminder for anyone who's on the call that maybe isn't familiar with practicing on your own, that's the joy, that's the beauty of having a teacher or a guide, that, you know, to not try to push yourself to do something on your own, but because when you get distracted, your voice pulls you back. And it's so beautiful. Yeah, it was really lovely. I wanted to see if anyone, we only have a few minutes left. Is there anything in the chat?
Well, someone just said that they've been going, Radhule, they've been going to your meditations and they're amazing. So just, and Ladybird, I fully like resonate with what you just said and had never really thought about it before. Like it's the same, I'm still comparing this to exercise because that's what I understand, but having that person who is helping you figure it out, like it totally makes sense here that this would also be something where you would need, or maybe a teacher makes sense because you're going to be pulled back in and be reminded of where to be when you might lose it. That was really beautiful. Thank you so much. And then Martha just said, lovely to meditate with all of you.
Thank you. Yeah, and like with the gym, at first it's hard. You don't want to go. Oh no, I don't want to go to the gym. And then after a week or two, please, can I go to the gym?
Right, your body
about
wants
that.
it, just like you said. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
We have a couple minutes left. I don't know if anyone has a question around any of what we've discussed or anything that maybe we haven't discussed that you have a question about, but please feel free. We can also, of course, just sit in this beautiful space that was just created. I'm literally feeling myself kind of vibrating, which is really nice.
I think something I would offer everyone is just to think about this as a practice and not as something to master, and our culture is so fixated on getting things right and mastering them. And then like, oh, I'm a meditator and I do this so well. And like, if you can set that down and see this as a way, like Radhule was saying, of being friends with yourself, like see this as an extension of you being in the world and experiencing the world around you. And it really shifts things out of that sort of performance capitalist gaining quantifiable things from it. Just see this as life.
Yeah, and kind of slowly making our world a better place. It's so difficult for so many of us. I think for almost everybody, whether it's personally or whether we look at climate or if we look at the news, it's hard. And I think we are making our world a better place. It's rippling outwards, and then the ripples meet each other. It's like creating little pods of peace. Actually, I don't know if you know Ladybird, but Sonia, we have been working with BJ on this article, Palliative Care in the World.
Yes.
And just yesterday, I got notice from Tricycle magazine, which was one of the biggest Buddhist magazines, that they are about to publish it.
Nice. Wonderful.
Wonderful.
So, you might all be, I don't know exactly when it comes out, but they say it's very soon. So maybe you can put it on the Mettle Health website.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's so many, just what you were talking about. We say this a lot around taking care of yourself and caring for other people, is that you need to care for yourself first. And this is just like a real practical example of how caring for yourself might look. And in this case, caring for yourself is getting in tune with yourself and having this relationship with yourself. Yeah.
So that you can show up with equanimity. That's the ripple you want to have, is the equanimity ripple, not the rage ripple or
right.
I'm
saving you ripple. But
and whether we can save our loved ones or ourselves if we are ill, or our world, it's the quality of presence that we bring. That is so important. No matter what the outcome is. And I think that's the whole idea of palliative care. We are increasing the quality of being for ourselves and for others, with our presence of being. Yeah.
That's a gorgeous thought to end on. It's really, really beautiful.
Thank you so much.
I hope we do more together.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. That was really just a calming and beautiful hour for me. So I really appreciate both of you. Thank you so much, Radhule, for being here.
Thank you.
Happy Friday to everybody. Happy weekend. And we'll hope to see you at another one soon. Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.